What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. I'm also going to break down why next week is going to be very significant as we have lots of news and data coming out. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 for free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia. Deposit $10,000 to get $300 worth of the stock, or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon, so please check out my link down below to sign up. There's only 10 days left for the offer. Now, when it comes to Tesla, we're kind of consolidating up here around this 450 area, and there is a risk of rejection in the overall market. And I do think that this could have an effect on Tesla. I'm going to break down exactly why that is. But first, when it comes to news, unfortunately, the NHTSA is saying that they have identified at least 80 instances where Tesla's FSD, when being used, it ended up violating road rules by running red lights or crossing into the wrong lane, according to a new report that came out. That tells us that the FSD, it's still great, right? It's very, very efficient. It's getting better every single month, every single time they have a new update. However, it's not perfect, and there will be some instances just like that where it will end up making some mistakes, and that is just part of the process. But I do assure you guys that many years down the line, these are going to be so advanced to the point where they're going to be much safer than human drivers. In fact, the rate of accidents is still very low for Teslas when they use their robotaxis or FSTs, and they still are very safe, but the public perception is not really there, because if there's just a few mistakes that are made out of, like, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rides, of course the mistakes are going to be screamed and the successful rides are going to be whispered. Whereas when humans drive, right, there's going to be insane amounts of mistakes relative to how many rides are made. But I just want to put it out there that it's understandable, because at the end of the day, we want robotaxi to be safe. We want FSD to be as safe as possible. So holding Tesla to these high standards is still okay. It's just that I don't want people to get the idea that, FSD is just useless. It's not working. It works very well. It's very efficient, but it's not perfect, and there are still improvements to be made. And they're getting better every single day. Eventually, it's going to be much safer, and it's going to be extremely rare for there to be mistakes. On top of this, Tesla has decreased the price of their Model 3. They have a new variant that came out in the US a few months ago, and now they're launching it in Europe. The Model 3 Standard has been once again looking at some high demand, but this new variant is going to be more affordable in Europe to help them with their sales. The latest sales data shows us that although Norway's sales were quite good, the majority of European countries are seeing big declines for Tesla sales for the month of November, from Germany to Sweden to the UK. So hopefully the new variant that's more affordable helps with the demand issues. On top of this, consumer reports are showing that Tesla has become very notable, as it's making the top 10 list for one of the most influential auto brands out there. So it's influential. It's doing very well. That's some good news that came out as well. So besides that, Mizuho and Melius Research gave Tesla buy ratings. I think we're still waiting for this to update. And the price price ratio is climbing as Tesla's building some strength, and we tend to see more volatility on Fridays and Mondays. Mondays tend to be green about 55% of the time. However, historically, November is a strong month, December is a weaker month, and then January is a very strong month for Tesla. That could be indicative of something very interesting to come. Heading into next week, on Monday, we have consumer inflationary expectations. On Tuesday, we have the ADP employment change data in the morning, alongside the JOLTS job openings and job quits data at 10 o'clock a.m. And then on Wednesday, we have the very important FOMC meeting. We start off with the interest rate decision from the Fed at 2 p.m. Then we have the FOMC economic projections telling us where interest rates will be 1, 2, and 3 years out, followed by the press conference with Jerome Powell giving a speech at 2:30. Then we have export and import data with some jobs numbers on Thursday, followed by a bunch of Fed speakers on Friday. So Tuesday and Wednesday will be very crazy next week, especially with FOMC on Wednesday. We're expecting the Fed to cut, so keep that in mind for next week. For earnings, there's not really much going on. Monday is going to be very quiet. Tuesday has lots of retail like Campbell and GameStop. On Wednesday, we basically have Chewy, and Oracle. And then for Thursday, we have Costco and a few more retail. Costco will be a big one. Last but not least, right now, fear makes up the majority of sentiment. Momentum is at neutral right now. The put to call option ratio is at fear, and we're going to see what happens with the VIX as it's at neutral, but it's approaching some key support. So my concern for Tesla is that historically Tesla has gotten lots of projections around 465 to 470. It's going to be a very, very tough resistance. I do think that Tesla has the potential to go a tiny bit higher, but we're consolidating right here around the 460 mark. If we break 460, we could go for 465 before a potential rejection. But if we don't, we could touch 460, consolidate. Then we'll see if we turn back down to the 440s for a temporary rejection. So watch that very, very closely as time goes on. We'll see if we get a rejection on Tesla. On SPY, the 4-hour has a double bearish divergence, and we have this resistance right here at this 685 area. We're going to see if we get a rejection or not. I also see a very clean looking inverse head and shoulders that's still developing, and I think that there is a risk that we consolidate and get a rejection back down to 675 or below on SPY before an end of the year rally. I still favor this, and I will go over more details about why that is. There's a bearish divergence on SPY. We're also at some tough resistance, and we're not doing the best of jobs at climbing. We're only up 0.19%, but resistance is getting tougher with these bearish divergences and this bearish setup. Also, the VIX, this is measuring implied volatility. This is basically going lower, but we're forming a bullish falling wedge. So could we dip a bit? Yes, but near 15, we do love to bounce, and I could be looking for a big breakout in the next like 1 to 2 weeks, in my opinion, which is a big sign that there's going to likely be a big rally essentially coming. I think that in the next 1 to 2 weeks, this will break out, and that this is basically going to form a bottom as we love to bounce near the 15s. There will likely be one final breakout for the year before we start to see the Santa rally, the real Santa rally, a little bit later on. So if the VIX breaks out, we see the bearish divergence pan out and the inverse head and shoulders. That means that spine, the QQQ could be looking for this, an inverse head and shoulders. We may chop around a little bit longer, but then I think there's going to be that right shoulder to scare a lot of people, and then we're going to get a final squeeze to new all-time highs from there. On the QQQ, we have an inverse head and shoulders. We have this left shoulder, we have a head, and then we're going to see if we form this right shoulder like this before we continue to squeeze much higher. There's a bearish divergence. There's gaps to fill below on SPY and the QQQ, and we will see if that setup ends up panning out. I'll go into more details about this on Sunday. On the IWM, we're kind of like ahead. We love to reject off 252, 252, and now we're touching 252, and we're going to see if we reject. If we break this, we could be bullish, but if we don't, there's going to be a risk of us essentially making a lower high and rejecting for 248. On ES, we have a rejection forming. There's also an inverse head and shoulders. We have a left shoulder, a head, and then we're going to see if we break 6,900. If not, we could be once again forming a right shoulder before we try to bounce like this. So give this the time it needs as time goes on. This is going to be very important for us. There's an inverse head and shoulders here, so we'll see if ES gets a big rejection. We rejected every time we hit the 6,900 area, so we're going to see if we turn back down, and then we have to be very, very patient nonetheless. On NQ, we also have a left shoulder, a head, and then we're going to see if we form a right shoulder before we try to bounce. But keep in mind that this is also going to be very key for how we end up moving. We have tough resistance at 25,800. We'll see if we turn back down to 25,000 flat. Bitcoin's making lower highs right here. We could be dipping a little bit more back down towards 87,500. We'll see if we bounce. Tesla's looking a bit more bullish. It might consolidate a little bit, could even pop a bit, but then I do think Tesla could be seeing a rejection of spine, the QQQ reject, and we might be looking for a move back down. So although we're bullish, we could try to test 460 and maybe go a little higher, but then look for a potential rejection on Tesla back down to the 440s for a final dip. And then once Tesla forms this bottom, we're looking for a big rally to finish off the year. A move like this before it breaks all-time highs for January, in my opinion. That's what I think Tesla will do. For Nvda, we're making lower highs, as you guys could tell. We're going to see if we could break 184 to continue. If not, we consolidate, then dip back down to 180 and 178. On Aapl, we're making lower highs. We have resistance at 280 and support at 278. As of right now, we're making lower highs, and there's a risk of us dipping back down towards 275, so we'll see how it goes. On Netflix, we're also making lower highs here. We're going to see if we try to bounce near this 100 area or not, but overall, I do see some risk of downside. AMD has a head and shoulders like pattern. We're also making lower highs. Unless we break 220, we favor consolidation and dip back down to 212. Coinbase is also dipping. We have a double top rejection. We're going to see if we hold above 272. If not, we could be dipping back down to 260. Amazon is making lower highs here. We're going to see if we break 231, but if we can't, we could be dipping back down to 225. Meta is also making higher lows here. If we end up losing basically 666, we could be dipping. If it fails us, we're looking for 653. Google is making lower highs here. We could be tipping to 318 to 315. We'll see if we bounce. And then Microsoft has a double top rejection. We're going to see if we break 486. If not, we could be tipping to 475. Finally, Oracle is trying to push right here. It has some upside potential approaching its earnings, but for now, look for some temporary upside for 225. Finally, the VIX is on a bit of a downturn. We're going to see if we break out of this falling wedge or not, but be very, very mindful of the fact that this is looking a little bit more bearish. It could dip a little bit more for the low 15s, but then I think there's going to be a big bounce in the next 1 to 2 weeks, and then it's going to be forming a final rally, which would be indicative of the final dip for the markets for the year, the final 1 to 2 week dip that I think is coming. And then I'm going to be very bullish for the last week of December. I believe that's what's about to come. So if the market does kind of like pop a little bit, we could try to consolidate a bit longer on Tesla, but we might get a 1 to 2 week sell-off that comes. We might temporarily dip on Tesla stock and for the overall market, and then that's going to help us form our final rally. There's a very, very good chance of that potentially forming. So I think that if we do kind of like pop and then drop on Tesla, there will be one more buying opportunity coming. And then we're going to be looking for a big rally to finish off the year. So something like this is what I think Tesla will do. I will go into more details about this in my later videos. But until then, I wish you all nothing but the best. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be back very soon with another upload. Until then, I wish you all the best and peace out.